story from Issa Rae yesterday at the Emmys, how she had pitched a black variety show or something to a white producer, and the producer said, you know, I had went on your YouTube page and I checked it out, and you know, it's a normal black woman show talking about black women's problems, and she's like, no, it's not. And he's like, well, you know, in order for this to be successful, you need familiar faces for the black community. And even I was sitting there thinking, like, what does he mean? Like, they need to be ghetto? Like, I'm always taken aback by that. Like, not everyone is ghetto. Like, not every black person is ghetto. Not every white person is not ghetto. I know so many white people who, I don't even call them ghetto. I just call them, you know, and I hate to say this, hillbillies. Like, you know, there are so many cities. I think there are cities across America where you have pockets of white, they call them white trash. And I hate to say that, but they have pockets of them in every city, similar to what you call black ghetto. So I hate when they do that, because, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, and if that was a black producer, and I'm sure a white producer comes along with the show, I'm sure that black producer could say the same thing. So I just find it funny when people do that, but whatever. So here Issa Rae, you know, semi-years later, she has so many successful shows. She has 2 successful shows on HBO. One, I think it won an Emmy last night for being like the best variety show, the Black Woman Variety Show, which is hilarious. It's so funny. So it's so weird how we have to beat down the walls to get just the same, you know, and I won't even say the same, just to get entry level. So shout out to Issa Rae, keep doing your thing. I'm a proud supporter. I enjoy watching everything you do, because, you know, not only does it give you a perspective that's funny, but it's refreshing. You identify, like, I identify with a lot of roles that she's done in Insecure, like male or female. You know, I just totally like get her way of thinking on that. I think she definitely with Insecure has now shown that we have a deeper, you know, there's deeper stories to what you see on the surface. It's easier to sell that stuff. That's why you always see that. But it's harder to dig deeper into our stories and try to sell that. And she does that and does it well. Shout out to Miss Issa Rae. I love you and I enjoy your entertainment. So keep doing what you're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is Tyler Perry from the Emmys. I like Tyler Perry. I like him because he is someone who, you know, essentially started from nothing. He built his plays into an empire, literally an empire. And I, you know, to this day, am just so shocked at how many people really support it and support those kinds of plays. Because I'm not a fan of that kind of play, theatrical play, where it's like the church dramas and the plays and stuff like that. I don't like it at all. I don't like the mics and the wigs. All that stuff just bothers me. But I want to say that he mentioned in his speech last night that something about his mother and a quilt, and how he didn't understand the quilt until he realized that it was woven stories of slaves. And he related that to him being a storyteller and a producer and an executive producer, you know, and someone who owns a lot of you know, brain farts not coming to my head, but someone who owns a lot of a network, not a network, but a studio. There you go, Tyler Perry Studios. Someone who owns a studio film, it's his job to weave diversity into what he does. And so now he's talking about that includes the LGBT community. And here's my thing. Again, I support Tyler Perry, great. I like what you've done. You definitely are someone who's breaking the barrier for a lot of us. But if you would have just had that same level of support for the LGBT community in the beginning, because now it just seems like, okay, yeah, it's not as impactful as I thought it would have been coming from someone like you, you know. Especially you wear wigs, you do these plays, you act like women. You know, not to mention, I still have my own questions about your sexuality, but that's none of my business. You can be whatever you want to be. But there's just a lot of things that's unconfirmed with you, and just your support seems to be Like, I don't know if you got something coming up or if that was just timely. It's timely for you to make that statement, but I feel like you're a little late to the game. But, you know, anytime you can jump on with your power and your brilliance, it's great. So I do expect to see a great LGBT ensemble cast show from you. Please, let's not make it the stereotypical corny one, the straight guy trying to fall for the gay guy and the woman's involved. The only way that'll work is if you have a character, sorry to say this, that is familiar. Because other than that, it just doesn't, it seems like, okay, phony and fake. It needs to be someone that you would never expect to be in this situation. That makes it seem more realistic, because that's the reality of it, is finding, there's guys that identify as one way and you see them in this position and you're like, wow, I never would have thought that. So please take that into consideration. And also definitely include transgender stories. I want to say within the last year, I recently had a transgender friend. I won't say we're like buddy friends, but we have had 2 encounters. I actually walk my dog, and when I walk my dog, she walks her dog. You know, we ran into each other, and I finally had conversation. And you know, one thing she said to me was, I said something, and she was like, thanks for supporting the community. And that's when I said, oh wow, okay, I didn't know, because she looked like a whole woman, a girl, like. And I said, oh wow. So she really did, like, she really did. And you know, to be out walking publicly, walking your dog like that, I could imagine how comfortable she had to be in herself to be in that, because there's not a lot of people who are comfortable in that, in those situations. So shout out again to Tyler Perry. Also share lesbian stories. We often sometimes forget that women on women stories, they're for real, for real. I don't want to dig too deep into my own personal family friend stuff, but there's a lot of times where I have female friends who have had encounters with other females, and that's all it was, but it was an encounter, and it's something that we need to bring to the light so that women can be, you know, can feel comfortable with understanding why sometimes, I guess, other spectrums of the LGBTQIAMPPYDDSCCC community relates. Because sometimes I feel like, you know, women are just like, well, I can go back and be straight. You know, I'm in this, but I can go back and be straight. But when we start highlighting the complexities of the women on women relationships, you'll be able to see that it's not as easy as just, well, I can go back and I can go and get a man and, you know, start. Yeah, but those feelings will always still be there. So shout out to Tyler Perry for wanting to bring those stories to the forefront. Something